What was Victorio Peak treasure? Rattlesnakes, sagebrush, vultures, and mule deer are the only animals that call White Sands, New Mexico, home. It is a hostile habitat. A man by the name of Doc Noss went deer hunting there in November 1937. He made the ascent of Victorio Peak, a hill. Doc looked for fresh spring water as his thirst and exhaustion increased. Instead, he found a weird opening in the ground that turned out to be a tunnel's covert entrance. Doc entered the entrance using the ladder that was there. There were many tunnels leading to a sizable cavern. Doc discovered an antique chest in one of the cavern's chambers. The words "sealed silver," inscribed in Old English inscription script, were on the lid. The riches that Doc Noss claimed to have discovered were not all that was in the chest. There were items made of gold, silver, diamonds, and gold bars that today are estimated to be worth $1.70 billion. It might still be concealed beneath the steep Victorio Peak slopes right now. Doc Noss has previously performed as a traveling physician. He wed Ova Beckwith, whom he affectionately dubbed Babe, in 1933. In Hot Springs, New Mexico, they made a home for themselves and started a foot clinic. Terry Delonas, Doc's grandson, grew up hearing amazing tales about his grandfather. He cherished exploration and found history to be fascinating. Babe had a strong personality. Ardent may be a good term to use to describe her. Doc and Babe spent all of their free time exploring the tunnels that ran deep inside the mountain after finding the treasure at Victorio Peak. Doc discovered that the mountain's tunnels lead to several caverns. He discovered 79 human skeletons packed in a small area in one of them. Doc discovered what appeared to be a stack of worthless iron bars in a deeper tunnel. To allow his wife Babe to examine the bars, he brought them home. I said, "Well, Doc, look at this. It's yellow." When he turned to look at it, the sun was shining directly down on it at the appropriate time. We may refer to John D. Rockefeller as a tramp if that is gold and all the other stuff is gold like it, he added, rubbing his head. Babe was informed by Doc that the cavern had up to 16,000 gold bars. How did this gigantic treasure end up in the Victorio Peak caverns? 4 theories exist. The man who established New Mexico as a Spanish colony, Juan de Oñate, may have been the owner of the treasure. Oñate allegedly accumulated an Aztec treasure made up of gold, silver, and jewels. A different hypothesis holds that a Catholic missionary by the name of Father LaRue, who ran gold mines in the late 18th century, kept his gold there. It might have belonged to Maximilian, the Mexican emperor, who attempted to flee Mexico after learning of a murderous plan. And last, it might have been a member of an Apache tribe that raided stagecoaches carrying California riches. Doc didn't care how the gold got there, though. 6 months after his discovery, in the spring of 1938, he and Babe traveled to Santa Fe to formalize their claims ownership. Terry, one of Doc and Babe's grandchildren, claims that they submitted a lease to the state of New Mexico for the entire parcel of land surrounding Victorio Peak. The Noss family's historic claim to the riches at Victorio Peak was made when they lodged a claim for a treasure trove. Doc mined the top for a total of 2 years. Witnesses claim he removed over 200 gold bars and then kept them hidden from everyone, including his family. Owning gold that wasn't in the form of jewelry was against the law back then. Terry claims that Doc hid the gold bars all across the desert, in several places. Some were just beside the county roads, hiding at the nearby ranches. Some were thrown into horse tanks. Some were just buried in the sand, and Doc would cover them with a rock that wasn't the appropriate color for the area. Finally, in the fall of 1939, Doc decided to attempt to create a wider entrance to Victorio Peak. He hired Montgomery, a mining engineer, to help him. The 2 men worked together to blast away a big boulder that was obstructing the lower part of the shaft with dynamite. The weak shaft was brought down by the blast's huge cave-in. Doc had barred himself out of his mind for good. Even bad, Terry, his grandson, said, was that Doc now only had a few gold bars to pull from. He only had a few dozen or so bars that he had brought to the surface, so he developed a fierce protectiveness for them. Doc Noss tried to sell his gold bars on the illicit market for 9 years. After that, in 1948, he contacted Charlie Ryan and agreed to sell him 51 of the bars. However, Doc is now terrified that Charlie Ryan might betray him. He requested assistance from a friend named Tony Jolly to rebury the gold in a new location. We started digging after traveling a short distance across the desert, and eventually, we pulled 20 bars of gold from the dirt. We buried the gold bars after learning that there were 90 more. I handled and observed 110 gold bars. Doc attempted to flee, but it was too late. Charlie Ryan fired a shot at him, killing him instantly. It was Thursday, March 5th, 1949. But Doc Noss did not bring an end to the story of the Victorio Peak riches. Other treasure hunters attempted to profit from Doc and Babe's claim as the rumor spread. In the tunnels of Victorio Peak, Doc Noss is said to have concealed a treasure consisting of 15,000 gold bars when he was assassinated in 1949. Babe Noss and her kids toiled to clear the path to riches for 3 years. The disaster occurred once more in 1952, this time fewer than 12 yards from the entrance to the primary cavern. Victorio Peak and the surrounding area were taken from the state of New Mexico so that the U.S. Army could expand the White Sands missile range. The Army forcibly removed Babe and her family from their claim. The military had now ordered that no one could access Victorio Peak. The blocked entry was cleared and the caves were explored by a party of soldiers who were not on duty, including former Airman First Class Thomas Burlett. Burlett claimed that they quickly located what Babe was looking for. They were made of bars. We immediately realized it was made of gold as soon as we began to scrape it. We wrote my initials on one of the interior bricks to identify it. Then we stood the brick on the end above the big heaps. The airmen eventually told their superiors about the gold they had discovered on Victorio Peak. They were not allowed to continue their exploration. Thomas Burlett claimed that they took precautions to ensure that the riches could not be recovered by anybody else. We went back to the entry the following weekend and dynamited it 4 times until blasting the whole thing shut. A military operation categorized as top secret was established at Victorio Peak more than a year later by the Secretary of the Army. Babe Noss and the state of New Mexico filed an injunction against the Army in 1961, requesting that they cease excavation at Victorio Peak. The Army requested mineral rights from the state of New Mexico in a petition in 1963, but their appeal was turned down. Nevertheless, an airborne surveillance photo revealed that significant progress had already been made. Finally, in response to criticism, the Army gave up and permitted certain private claimants, including Babe Noss and former service members, to travel to Victorio Peak for a highly visible, 10-day expedition. The excavation was a protracted, extensive undertaking, but 10 days later, no treasure had been discovered. A scientist from the Stanford Research Institute who participated in the excavation, Lambert Dolphin, hypothesized that the wealth might indeed have been present but just out of reach. I observed some echoes on the radar screen that were occurring pretty often at a depth of 300 to 400 feet. And that convinced me that, as Doc Noss had suggested, there was a sizable cavern at the foot of the mountain. There could yet be billion-dollar worth of diamonds, antiques, and gold deposits hidden deep inside Victorio Peak. Years later, Tony Jolly, the person who assisted in concealing some of the gold, returned and collected 10 bars. But Doc's heirs have not made any money. What will happen to the treasure is still, quite literally, a billion-dollar mystery for Terry Delonas and the rest of Doc's family. We have decided to complete the work that Doc Noss began and that Babe Noss attempted to complete. Victorio Peak will finally be opened, allowing us to unravel the mystery of what lies inside. This is the end of today's video. Give your precious feedback in our comment section below. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.